maintaining our mental health by addressing our physical health.
I didn't always have the tools that I have now.
Macy Topp shares her personal experience with long-haul COVID.
Hard tracking, like memory gone, just the exhaustion though, like feeling like I'm gonna cry in the morning because I'm so tired.
And Minnesota Department of Health's Mattie Laidlaw gives us the latest update on Mpox.
If you know people who are at risk or qualify for the vaccine, just having conversations with them about it if they aren't vaccinated yet.
Mental health, Macy Topp, Mattie Laidlaw, MDH, and the Pink Power Panel, all on today's Equity Report. Well, thanks so much for joining us. You're watching the Equity Report, sponsored by Minnesota Department of Health. I'm Todd Michael Barnes. Whether it's the darkness and doldrums of winter, the stress of the recent holiday season, or just the challenges of everyday life, our mental health can be affected in many different ways. According to the Centers for Disease Control, mental and physical health are equally important parts of overall health. For example, depression increases the risk for long-lasting conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and stroke. Just as persistent physical health problems can lead to mental illness. But what some may not realize is that some people who have become infected with COVID-19 can experience horrendous health conditions that just won't seem to go away. This, physicians are calling long-haul COVID or long COVID. Some of these very painful, life-altering effects from long COVID can involve symptoms which affect our mental health, such as difficulty thinking or concentrating, sometimes referred to as brain fog, headache, sleep problems, pins and needles feelings, and depression or anxiety. So if you've previously become infected with COVID-19 and you're experiencing any of these symptoms, just know there might be more than meets the mind's eye. Recently, ENN got a chance to talk to Macy Topp, a South Minneapolis resident, wife, and entrepreneur who became infected with COVID-19 in 2021 and has spent the past year and a half not only trying to find solutions to the severe, lingering physical effects of COVID-19, but trying to navigate the mental health effects too. In October 2021, 50-year-old Minneapolis resident Macy Topp was on vacation when she was diagnosed with COVID-19. When Topp returned from vacation, the COVID-19 symptoms wouldn't shake.
Early December, I was in my car and I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about long-haul COVID clinics, and I was like, wait, what's that?
Topp learned from doing a Google search that HCMC had a long COVID clinic. Topp was given a referral to the HCMC long COVID clinic and told to wait.
March was the first time maybe I was able to get in. So I had to wait 3 months.
What were the specific symptoms you were experiencing?
Extreme exhaustion, hard tracking, like memory gone, just the exhaustion though, like feeling like I'm gonna cry in the morning because I'm so tired and not wanting to go to work.
As time went on, Topp still didn't understand what was happening with her body. Topp was relieved when she finally saw a specialist at the long COVID clinic, thinking she had finally met someone who could help.
I go to the long haul clinic at that time, and the guy he didn't even touch me. He didn't like listen to my heart. He did nothing. He just was like, how long are your symptoms?
There were also other symptoms which persisted.
One symptom I had was Raynaud's, where my fingers and my toes didn't get blood circulation. So they were cold and purple all the time, and had blisters on my toes.
Oddly, the doctor offered to prescribe Topp blood pressure medication and suggested she take vitamin B with different supplements.
And I was like, I think I'll skip that.
Topp left feeling like she had been heard, but not feeling like there was any resolution. It was then the specialist referred Topp to the Penny George Institute for Health and Healing in Minneapolis.
So then that took a few more months to get into him. He really took time, listened, but I also just felt like he was collecting data.
Topp has a theory as to the reasoning behind the treatment ambiguity.
I would say that they discovered that Western medicine wasn't working for long haul symptoms. So now they're looking at integrative medicine, which is more based on Eastern medicine.
Slowly but surely, Topp finally began receiving some of the treatment she was seeking all along.
I saw the doctor, I think it was like every 6 weeks. And then I also went to a chiropractor.
Topp also experienced extreme headaches.
And it was a headache that I had never had. It was behind my eye and then went to the back of my head. And there was no Advil or anything that would help.
Topp would stop at nothing to find solutions as to what could be causing her adverse health conditions. And she did so with courage, even though scared.
It was terrifying. And I also would read like stuff about why you have these symptoms. Like, I mean, I dove deep. I started listening to Osterholm's podcast. I started reading up what Europe was doing. They were saying things like the memory loss is the equivalent of having a concussion, like you're having brain injury, that your body can't differentiate between healthy cells and bad cells in your brain, and it was eating them. So basically your body is attacking itself, creating all these different weird symptoms. So in the meantime, I'm taking like licorice and vitamin D and blah blah. I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on supplements. Nothing really worked. Then insomnia on top of it. So you're exhausted and you go to bed and then you don't sleep.
Flash forward to March 2022, Topp again contracted COVID while on another vacation, only this time in Germany. What Topp endured next was a continued COVID nightmare. This time away from her home, away from her community, and away from her English-speaking language.
So luckily I did test negative 2 days before we left. So we were able to fly home.
And then Topp's symptoms came back with a vengeance.
I would say they came back with vengeance. Anything that I had achieved was now gone.
Finally, in the fall of 2022, Topp felt like she was making leeway in combating her long COVID symptoms.
This past October, he started talking about putting me on LDN, which is a low dose of Narcan, which is the drug that opioid overdose patients get. It's a drug that has shown lots of effectiveness in helping people with particularly autoimmune systems, because what the bottom line is COVID freaks your autoimmune system out to the point that it's fight and flight constantly.
Topp is committed to continuing to be her own best personal healthcare advocate.
I'm also someone that, if I'm taking all these supplements and stuff, I want to take one thing at a time to know if it works or not. Like, why take a whole bunch of stuff when then you can't do like the process of elimination?
So finally, after 2 years, just where is Topp in her long COVID journey?
So I feel like it does help a little with my brain fog. I am a little more rested at night, but I wouldn't say it's like a cure-all. I'm on a lot of long haul COVID Facebook groups, which is worldwide. So it's really interesting seeing what people do across the pond, because over there, if you get you can get disability fairly easily, and then they just support you. Nor do you have to pay for your health care. So it's pretty crazy. And I do, reading those, I count my blessings, because there are people on there that have not left their bed in years and are suicidal, have gotten divorced, lost their jobs, really terrible. So I feel lucky.
And in a related note, something that can impact our mental and physical health is substance abuse, which can be over drinking or doing unprescribed drugs or popping pills not given by a nurse or a doctor. According to the National Institutes of Health, or the National Institutes on Drug Abuse, researchers have observed increases in substance use and drug overdoses in the United States since the COVID-19 pandemic was declared a national emergency in March of 2020. The COVID-19 pandemic also presents unique challenges for people with substance use disorders and those in recovery. So, if you're a person who has found recent occasion in life to have one too many glasses, or take one too many hits, or pop one too many pills, or engage in mental or physical behavior you know to be harmful to yourself or others, correct the behavior and remember to be gentle with yourself. Part of maintaining good mental health is being aware of the risks around us. The NIH say risks are all around us. A nearby sneeze may raise your risk of catching the flu. Obesity boosts the odds you'll get diabetes. Smoking increases your risk for many cancers. And if you pay attention to news headlines, we might worry that we're at risk for food poisoning or Zika infection or shark attacks and much more. So how can we know which risks really apply to you? Well, the way we here at ENN know how to stay on top of health risks is to go straight to the source, the Minnesota Department of Health. So right now, Mattie Laidlaw from Minnesota Department of Health gives us the latest update on Mpox, formerly known as Monkeypox, and shares with us different ways to keep ourselves safer.
Yeah, our last case was the 5th of November. And then before that, the last case was October 18th. So we're actually doing really well in Minnesota for this outbreak. That being said, it's still circulating in other states. It's really recommended that people either get vaccinated if they haven't already, or that they avoid contact with other people that might be positive for monkeypox. So really talking to partners, if you're going to have partners, about monkeypox, which we now are calling Mpox, is really still key to helping with this. And then if you know people who are at risk or qualify for the vaccine, just having conversations with them about it if they aren't vaccinated yet.
And for people who don't know what Mpox is, just in general, what is Mpox? Where's it come from?
Yeah, so Mpox, we used to be calling it monkeypox. We're slowly transitioning over to Mpox because of some, racist connotations with the name monkeypox. It is a virus that's related to smallpox, and the only reason it was called monkeypox was it was first detected in monkeys in Holland. And so what it is a virus that causes either bumps that look kind of like pimples that can be not a big deal, or they can be really, really painful. There can be just one, or you can have many. And where we're seeing it right now in this outbreak is primarily through sexual contact between two male partners or more. And so a lot of the spaces we're seeing them are in the face, in the hands, in the genital areas. And what can be kind of challenging is sometimes the bumps show up inside of the body. And so someone may not actually see that they have it. But generally speaking, if it's internal, it's going to be pretty painful. And so if someone is experiencing any of that pain or knows of any new bumps or rash that are showing up, definitely recommend them to go in and get tested for monkeypox or Mpox. I'm still transitioning over to the new language too.
How about treatment if you do have Mpox?
Yeah, so there is treatment. There's a treatment that's authorized for monkeypox that is used for treating smallpox, actually. And so that works pretty well. Generally speaking, most people will just need to rest and take pain medication if they need it. But if it's pretty severe, we really recommend that you go in to get seen and get some more hands-on treatment. And as a note, the people who are experiencing more severe Mpox are generally people who are immunocompromised. So they have a condition like HIV that is not being managed with medication. And so their body is more vulnerable to viruses, and with Mpox, more likely to have more extreme pain and end up in the hospital because of it.
Minnesota Department of Health recommends every Minnesotan aged 6 months of age and older can get vaccinated. All Minnesotans ages 5 and older should get an updated bivalent booster vaccine if eligible. The Minnesota Department of Health offers a vaccination program where you can make an appointment or walk right in. Insurance and identification aren't needed, so to find a vaccine provider near you, visit the website listed below. And remember, you can also get tested. Just go to a no-barrier community testing site run by the state of Minnesota for a saliva or rapid test. For free testing, visit the website listed below. Well, this episode, the Pink Power Panel is kind enough to share how they are maintaining their own mental health during this time and give tips about how they'll continue to care for themselves in year 2023.
Knowing to have a pre-existing condition and then having to deal with COVID as well. On top of that, we have to deal with the scare factor, and the reality that people are dying, behind COVID. And that was motivation for me to become vaccinated. I didn't necessarily grow up in a home that promotes vaccinations. My siblings are still unvaccinated. However, the reality of people passing away and the reality that if I become infected, I could infect somebody else was enough for me to get off of my butt and want to do something about it.
Well, 125,000 people a year still in the United States dying of COVID. That's just in the United States. And of course, still the third leading cause of death. Joe, do you have lingering effects, even though you're not describing it as long COVID? Do you have lingering effects from that severe case of COVID?
I can't pinpoint anything, but
besides gratitude for your husband?
Yeah, that was 2 years ago, but I had a brain fog coming out of that for months. I just couldn't quite feel like myself. And I honestly, looking back, think that it was the COVID.
I wish we could blame the attitude on COVID, but that was a pre-existing condition.
Right. Duly noted. Duly noted. Well, in terms of mental health, they've talked about the anxiety, the depression, the all the way up to psychosis as to how we can be affected, let alone sadness and fear and stress. And so in terms of recommendations, continued recommendations to stay safe in general, but also in particular during this time of continued COVID and even looking out for monkeypox, what would be your recommendations first on mental health and then on physical health? How do you keep yourself sane?
I didn't always have the tools that I have now, or even the self-assurance or the self-esteem to maintain a peace of mind as I do today. And I can say that the thing that has changed for me is my approach to life. Instead of wanting to have it all figured out, I'm taking the position of a lifelong learner. And that comes down in the form of even my emotions. Let's face it, the world has been through a significant change, since 2020. Isolation, social interactions being taken away, economic, health crisis, so many things have happened, that we have to embrace like how fragile we are as humans and how human we really are. I don't have to have it all figured out, but what is helpful for me is to be able to express that. Once I'm able to recognize that I'm not okay, or once I'm able to recognize that I need help, it becomes my duty to name that and to recite that first to myself. And I'm thankful that I have a good support network, because then I can recite that to them. Hey, I don't have this figured out. Hey, I need help with X, Y, and Z. And really gather strength from my village rather than feeling like I have to do it all alone. And unfortunately, most of us, well, I don't want to say most of us, most of my family inherited the view that we have to have everything figured out, that if we don't, it makes us look weak. So rewriting those narratives, because those narratives were narratives that were handed down to me. But now I get to write my story, hence change my narrative.
That's very strong. And I noticed one thing that you referenced was the world going through something very significant. And I just want to ask you quickly, do you think that the lack of acknowledgement, I noticed you said it's important to name things. Do you think the lack of acknowledgement that 6 million of our fellow human beings have just vanished off the earth in a year and a half's time, and we're not talking about that, do you think that might be some grief that's adding to anxiety that's not being addressed?
There's this saying that I heard recently. It says, two young fish are swimming by two old fish, and one of the older fish said, "How's the water?" And the younger fish said, "What water?" And that's the same thing with trauma. So when you're actually in something and you're so young in it, you don't actually know what's happening. I don't think we as a people or as a world have fully processed the deaths that have happened from COVID just yet. And so where we're at the beginning of an understanding isn't where we'll be 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And then the processing has to follow in that order as well. And so I don't know how long it will take, but there are definitely signs that things aren't okay. The isolation, depression, mental health, seeing noticeable numbers. And we can't leave out substance use, and we can't leave out overdose, and we can't leave out other trickle-down effects that are coming out of this.
Joe, how about you? What do you use in terms of, I'll call it coping skills? Because that's what it seems like with all this incoming at us so often.
Yeah, I feel like at the height of the pandemic, maybe a year into it, I started doing therapy over Zoom. I mean, COVID made a lot of things inaccessible, but then as a society, we kind of adapted, and some things became even more accessible if you knew how to access them. And online therapy was one of them. So for me, that got me to where I needed to be at that time. And I'm very grateful for it. I would have never imagined in a world that we lived in where you would open your phone up and have a therapy session, that human-to-human contact and face-to-face was so important. It's so important for healing and working through things. I would have never thought that I could do that on my phone, but we did it.
Mm-hmm. And for a hot minute, and it was real brief, it was like a flash, we did couples therapy together.
On Zoom?
Yeah.
Online?
On Zoom, yeah. I think that was mostly to get like the discount for the marriage license and stuff.
That was smart. That was very smart. Good.
But individual journeys, I currently still see a therapist. It's a neutral place for me to be able to process my story. And I'm a firm believer that we all have stories worthy of being told in a neutral space. And so I get to do that, and so it's a privilege and an honor for me to be able to share. I no longer see it as a weakness, back to those things that we don't talk about, views of the world we inherit, have to figure it all out. This is me rewriting the narrative because I don't have to keep it to myself.
Beautiful. Well, what does 2023 look like in closing for both of you in terms of endeavoring to stay healthy above and what you've already described?
For me, continue going to the gym, make sure that I make time for me, keep my friends close, make a healthy work, social balance, just those types of things.
Nice.
Yeah, for me, I'm conscious physically. I wouldn't say that I invest all of my time in the physical health portion, even though I have ways of, finding that physical exercise. But more so for me, it is cultural competency, emotional intelligence, and personal development. Like those are the things that are buckets for me to when I think about planning for the future, when I think about goal setting, those are at my foundation. Because I want to know more in 2023 than I did in 2022. I want to be of more assistance to myself. I want to be able to name things that are happening within me sooner, and that, sooner could be from 10 days to 9 days. It doesn't have to be a big leap, but I want to continuously improve. And so when I think about health, it's emotional health, it's mental health, as well as the physical health.
So cultural competency and quality of life in the city of George Floyd. That sounds like a good recipe going forward. For
sure. And I think that it really is key into building meaningful relationships. And every year, that's my goal, is meaningful relationships.
Well, we hope you'll join us again when we pick up in 2023. And I want to thank you for, again, just one more year of sharing your advice and counsel and insight and caring and sharing with everyone. So I so appreciate it. It's so valuable. And it helps me, so I know it's got to be helping other people.
And we thank you, too, for bringing this to the people.
If you ever decide to open up a private practice for counseling, I will be the first damn client sitting on that couch.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's going to be called street therapy. We don't have any degree over here, but we can definitely get you together.
So yeah, let me know so I can book a session, please. This episode is dedicated to any queer or trans person who may be feeling alone or who may just need a friend. Because here, our sacred word is all. Well, this marks the official end to our second season of LGBT Healthcare and Me, now known as the Equity Report. So we'd like to take a moment to thank Minnesota Department of Health, Commissioner Jan Malcolm, Contract Manager Amy Michael, the Pink Power Panel, members of the queer and trans communities, our viewing audience, and especially you. We're so honored to be bringing you important, relevant health equity news. Remember Deconstruction Zone, Losing Your Psychic Pounds, Rebooting Who You Are. The book written by Todd Michael Barnes and Louis Blaze is now available to order on Amazon just for you. If you or a loved one still needs to get the COVID-19 vaccine, visit the Vaccine Connector at the website address listed below. Well, today we discussed the ravaging effects of long COVID, how to keep safer from Mpox, and the importance of getting the COVID-19 vaccine. But what we really talked about, just the same as every episode, what we really discussed were the issues of self-worth and living with joyful love. Remember, LGBTQ persons and our allies, you are not alone. You can find us 24/7 at our website, www.equitynewsnetwork.com. Find us on our YouTube channel at Equity News Network. And don't forget to smash that like button and remember to hit subscribe. Until our next episode. And until we meet again, it's my hope we dish up some respect and lean in toward love. For all of us at ENN, Todd Barnes, reporting.